Harvard students consistently outperform their peers across every academic metric, yet recent research reveals they're not naturally more intelligent than anyone else. The difference lies in the specific study techniques that transform ordinary learning into extraordinary results. These methods are so effective that implementing just 3 of them can double your retention rate within 2 weeks. Today, you're going to discover each technique and learn exactly how to apply them to your own studies immediately. The myth surrounding Harvard intelligence has persisted for decades, creating the false belief that academic excellence requires exceptional natural ability. This misconception prevents millions of students from reaching their true potential. After analyzing the study habits of over 200 Harvard students across multiple disciplines, researchers identified consistent patterns that separate high achievers from average learners. These patterns form a systematic approach to learning that anyone can master, regardless of their starting point or academic background. The first technique is active recall, a method that flips traditional studying completely upside down. Most students read material repeatedly, believing exposure creates understanding. This passive approach activates only surface-level brain processes, similar to how watching someone exercise doesn't build your own muscles. Active recall demands that you close your textbook after reading and immediately challenge your brain to reproduce the information from memory alone. This retrieval process strengthens neural pathways exponentially, more than passive reading, creating lasting knowledge connections. Harvard students implement active recall through constant self-testing, using flashcards strategically, explaining concepts aloud to empty rooms, and writing detailed summaries without referencing source material. Each retrieval attempt builds cognitive strength, transforming weak memory traces into robust knowledge networks. Spaced repetition represents the second breakthrough technique that conquers the forgetting curve permanently. Human memory follows predictable patterns, with newly learned information fading rapidly, unless reinforced at optimal intervals. Most students fight this natural process through cramming, which creates temporary retention that disappears immediately after exams. Harvard students work with their brain's natural rhythm instead of against it, reviewing material at scientifically determined intervals that maximize long-term retention. They schedule reviews for day 1, day 3, day 7, day 14, and day 30 after initial learning. Each review session occurs precisely when forgetting begins, reinforcing the memory before it weakens. Modern spaced repetition software calculates these intervals automatically, removing guesswork and creating a personalized review schedule that adapts to your individual forgetting patterns. This systematic approach transforms short-term cramming into permanent knowledge acquisition. The third game-changing method stems from Nobel Prize winner Richard Feynman's learning philosophy, which states that true understanding manifests through simple explanation. The Feynman technique requires students to teach newly learned concepts using elementary language that any child could comprehend. This process exposes knowledge gaps with surgical precision, revealing exactly where understanding breaks down. Harvard students routinely explain complex theories using basic vocabulary, analogies from everyday life, and step-by-step reasoning that builds logically from simple principles. When explanation becomes difficult or convoluted, they immediately identify weak areas, requiring additional study. This teaching approach creates multiple neural pathways to the same information, making retrieval faster and more reliable under pressure. The technique also develops communication skills that prove invaluable in academic presentations and professional settings. Cornell note-taking transforms passive information recording into active learning engagement through strategic page organization. Traditional note-taking resembles mindless transcription, capturing words without processing meaning. The Cornell method divides each page into 3 distinct sections that serve specific cognitive functions. The narrow left column contains questions, keywords, and prompts that guide review sessions. The wide right section captures detailed notes, diagrams, and explanations during lectures or reading. The bottom section summarizes the entire page in concise personal language that demonstrates comprehension. This structure forces active engagement during information intake, creating notes that function as learning tools rather than mere records. Harvard students use Cornell notes to prepare for exams efficiently, focusing on left-column prompts to test their knowledge while referring to detailed explanations when needed. Interleaving practice represents the fifth technique that builds flexible and adaptable knowledge through strategic subject mixing. Most students study one topic extensively before moving to the next, believing concentrated focus maximizes learning efficiency. But this block practice creates context-dependent knowledge that transfers poorly to mixed situations like comprehensive exams. Interleaving deliberately alternates between different subjects, problem types, or skill areas within single study sessions. Harvard students might solve calculus problems, then analyze historical documents, then practice foreign language vocabulary, and then return to mathematics with a fresh perspective. This constant switching challenges the brain to identify appropriate strategies for each task, building pattern recognition and flexible thinking skills. While interleaving feels more difficult initially, it produces superior long-term retention and improved performance on mixed assessments that require rapid strategy switching. Deep work creates the optimal mental environment for complex learning through sustained, distraction-free focus periods. Modern students face constant interruption from smartphones, social media, and multitasking demands that fragment attention and reduce learning efficiency. Deep work sessions eliminate these distractions completely, creating extended periods where complex cognitive processes can operate without interference. Harvard students typically work in focused blocks lasting 60 to 90 minutes, with all devices silenced and removed from their workspace. During these sessions, they tackle their most challenging material when mental energy peaks. This concentrated attention allows for deep processing that creates rich, interconnected knowledge networks impossible to develop through fragmented study sessions. The resulting flow state makes difficult concepts feel manageable and transforms studying from exhausting work into engaging exploration. Simulated practice prepares students for high-pressure performance by replicating exam conditions during study sessions. Athletes train under game-like conditions to perform optimally when competition pressure peaks. Academic performance follows similar principles, with stress and time constraints affecting cognitive performance significantly. Harvard students regularly practice under time conditions, using past exams, practice problems, and mock assessments that mirror actual testing environments. This preparation reduces test anxiety by familiarizing students with pressure situations before they matter. Repeated exposure to time constraints improves processing speed and decision-making under pressure. Students develop confidence, knowing they've succeeded under similar conditions previously, creating positive mental associations with challenging assessments. Strategic study groups leverage collective intelligence to deepen individual understanding through collaborative learning. Most study groups devolve into social gatherings or homework copying sessions that provide minimal educational value. Harvard study groups function as intellectual laboratories where participants challenge each other's understanding through questioning, debate, and explanation. Group members take turns teaching concepts to others, exposing gaps in knowledge that individual study might miss. Diverse perspectives illuminate different aspects of complex topics, creating comprehensive understanding that surpasses what any single student could achieve alone. Effective groups establish clear objectives, rotate teaching responsibilities, and maintain focus on learning rather than socializing. Understanding focused learning builds permanent knowledge foundations by emphasizing conceptual mastery over memorization. Rote memorization creates fragile knowledge that disappears quickly after exams. But deep understanding develops robust mental models that last lifetimes. Harvard students consistently ask why concepts work, rather than simply accepting what they're told. They connect new information to existing knowledge, creating integrated understanding that strengthens with time. This approach requires more initial effort, but produces knowledge that transfers to novel situations and supports advanced learning and related areas. Students who prioritize understanding find that memorization becomes unnecessary because logical connections make information retrieval automatic. The final technique recognizes that peak cognitive performance depends on optimal physical health and brain maintenance. Students cannot achieve excellence while neglecting their body's fundamental needs for rest, nutrition, and exercise. Harvard students prioritize sleep quality because memory consolidation occurs during rest periods, particularly deep sleep phases. They fuel their brains with nutrient-dense foods that support neurotransmitter production and cognitive function. Regular exercise increases brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which promotes neural growth and connectivity. Stress management, through meditation or relaxation techniques, prevents cortisol from interfering with memory formation. These lifestyle factors create the biological foundation necessary for implementing advanced study techniques effectively. The gap between average students and high achievers isn't talent or intelligence, it's methodology. These techniques represent a complete learning system that transforms how your brain processes, stores, and retrieves information. Implementation requires discipline and consistency, but the results justify the effort investment. Choose one technique immediately and commit to mastering it over the next 2 weeks. Once it becomes automatic, add another technique to your arsenal. This gradual approach prevents overwhelm while building sustainable study habits that compound over time. Your brain possesses unlimited learning potential, and these techniques simply unlock it systematically.